Hi, good morning or afternoon, everyone. This is Mark Hamlin here, and we are about to start the webinar for Dynamics Ship. I'm going to go through a little bit of a presentation here first. So we're going to go through a little bit about us, a little bit of a product overview, and then we're going to jump right into the demo. I expect this to take roughly half an hour or so. Usually it's 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the questions that you may have. If you do have any questions, we like to keep this as interactive as possible. So feel free to enter any questions you have within that questions box in GoToWebinar, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go through the session or do a follow-up afterward. All right. With that, let's jump in. If you don't know who we are, InsightWorks, we're a global distributor of add-ons for NAV and Business Central. And we're based in Western Canada with offices throughout the world, Amsterdam, US, other parts of Canada. But everything we do for the most part is through our reseller network. So if you have questions about the software, about quotes, those sorts of things, generally, you'll go to your partner, the people that run your Business Central or NAV system, and they'll be able to give you your answers. You can get a list of those partners on the website here. If you can't get answers from them directly, feel free to contact us and we'll do whatever we can to help you out. Right, so that's a little bit about us very briefly. A little bit about our product line. So obviously we're going to be focusing on Dynamics Ship today, but I'm going to force you to listen to a little bit of a blurb on each of these other products. So just in case you have some interest in them, and then we'll jump right in. So Warehouse Insight is a mobile warehouse management solution. And often that will go with Dynamics Ship, because if you're shipping things, probably you have to pull them out of a warehouse and you have to receive them or produce them or whatever else. And so Warehouse Insight allows you to do that with a handheld scanner. So mobile warehouse management, where you can walk around, you can do your receiving, your picking, even production. You can even do shipping with it and those sorts of things. So often those are tied in together, Dynamics Ship and Warehouse Insight, though they can run independently. Okay. Advanced inventory count often goes with Warehouse Insight as well, because if you're shipping inventory, chances are eventually you're going to have to count it, and the advanced inventory count makes that much more easy and effective than what you get out of Business Central or NAV. License plating is sort of an underlying technology for Dynamics Ship and Warehouse Insight. I won't get into that, but we'll sort of see that in action in the demo. Now that's sort of material handling. Down the next two are if you're in a production environment. So if you do have a production environment, Shop Floor Insight is a manufacturing execution system. Lets you do graphical scheduling, capture labor times, consumption, output, quality, all of those sorts of things you need to run your shop floor are available within Shop Floor Insight. MX APS is Advanced Planning and Scheduling. So that actually allows you to go and generate a schedule for your manufacturing facility based on your existing capacities, your existing loading, your run times, your setup times, setup minimization, all those sorts of things, material availability. It'll generate a schedule you can actually execute on the shop floor. Counter sales sometimes goes with Dynamics Ship as well, because if you do have a parts counter, if you're doing, any sort of have a trade desk or any of that kind of stuff, this will allow you to do those point of sale activities directly from within Business Central or NAV, and it fills all the gaps that you would find in standard NAV or Business Central. So multiple payment methods per order, being able to scan barcodes to build your order, like a UPC code, somebody drops off a can of WD-40 and you want to scan it in, you can do that. Deposits, layaways, all those sorts of things that you would normally need in a sort of a point of sale or counter sales type of application is available. Product Configurator allows you to build up products. So that can include kits. So if you're doing a assemble to order where you're building up a kit before you ship it, you can use a product configurator to do that. Like let's say it's a typical example is a bike or a desk or something. I can choose my various options and it'll generate that assembly BOM for me. But you can also use it for production BOMs and routings, and you can use rules and formulas to build out full BOMs and routings for very complex types of products, all the way up to trucks that we have people using to build truck bodies and things like that. Enhanced Planning Worksheet. If you're using the standard requisition worksheet or planning worksheet in NAV or Business Central today, the Enhanced Planning Worksheet is really something you should look at. It gives you a much better dashboard for doing that planning, so you don't have to drill down 50 times to find out why the system is telling you to buy 10 of something. It's all sort of there at your fingertips. And then the other advantage, if you're in distribution, so if you're running a warehouse where you're doing a lot of purchasing from vendors, it has additional logic to help with that purchasing process. So, prepaids by vendor, It eliminates all the noise, like the new cancel messages, all of those sorts of things that you would typically see in standard MRP. Makes it much easier to purchase if you're running, say, a distribution center. The next two are for Business Central Cloud, and they're free. So Barcode Generator, if you need to add barcodes to your products or documents or whatever, that's a free tool you can download, run, and get your developer to add barcodes to whatever reports you need. Doc Extender is a drag and drop utility, so it lets you drag and drop onto any page within Business Central that has an attachments fact box, and it's free. Just install it and you can now drag and drop your documents. Nav Extender is that same thing, drag and drop documents for the Windows client. So if you're running Nav or Business Central on the Windows client, you download Nav Extender, you go to navextender.com, download it, run it, and without any changes to your license or to Nav or Business Central, you can now drag and drop into any card within that system. All right, so that's a little bit of the product line. Now, one other thing to mention, all of these products are built into Nav or Business Central, with the exception of APS here, but everything is built into Nav or Business Central. There's no separate database, you know, everything is real time. It's one system that you're dealing with. Okay. They're also pretty much all available for both the on-premises versions of Nav 2013 and up, and the Business Central Cloud versions. So it doesn't really matter which version of Nav or Business Central you're running, we can likely support your requirements. All right, that's a little on the product line. Let's talk about Dynamic Ship in a little more detail. Now we're going to cover most of this off in the demo, but really high-level overview, what Dynamic Ship allows you to do is integrate with your carriers. So you can see very small icons here, but we have about 100 different carriers currently, and we have another couple of hundred coming online early next year, mostly LTL type carriers, where you can actually go out, rate shop, so you can look at what rates the carriers are going to charge you, the delivery dates, and generate your shipping labels all from within Business Central or Nav. So that includes things like UPS and FedEx, and we don't integrate with WorldShip, like the actual software package or the FedEx Ship Manager or anything else. We replace that software. So all you ever need to do is run Dynamic Ship within Business Central or Nav, and you can do all your shipping activities through there. Okay, so that's the whole point of the thing. So I've already talked about some of these, you know, a large number of carriers, that rate shopping, label generation, and the important bit on that rate shopping is we're using the contractual rates based on your account number. So when you go in there, the rate that comes back from FedEx or UPS, that's based on your account number, your discounts, all of those sorts of things. It's easy to use, that sort of thing. The last couple are kind of important as well. You know, shipping isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all application, and you may need to change the behavior or may want to change the behavior and how something works. Well, you can do that very easily. Even in the older versions of Nav and the on-premises Business Central, you never have to modify any of our source code or business logic or anything else. We have plugins, so you can create your own logic to do almost anything you like. You can plug it into the system, and then we execute that through the standard workflows that we have within Dynamic Ship. So it makes it very easy to extend if you need to. And I'll talk about an example of that when we get in the demo. The other thing that's important is that integration with Warehouse Insight. So if you do need a warehouse management system, we can now handle through Warehouse Insight and Dynamic Ship everything from the time the product comes in the back door, when you receive it, all the way through all the warehouse operations and out to shipping. And we can actually do the packaging on the mobile devices if you like. So especially if you're doing LTL and you need to be more mobile, you can use a handheld device to do the packaging. If you're just shipping UPS or FedEx, I can still do packaging on the handheld device, and I can actually generate a UPS or FedEx or whatever label directly from the handheld device as well. So that integration with the warehouse management system, that native direct integration with the warehouse management, is nice to have. All right, so that's it for the presentation, the salesy part of it. Let's jump right in and look at the demo. Now, as I mentioned, it does run in NAV or Business Central Retailer client or in the web client. This is actually the hosted version of Business Central I'll be doing the demo in. And that's because based on the registrations, looks like everybody on this call is actually running in Business Central Cloud. But just so you know, everything I'm going to show you in Business Central Cloud, this is it in the Windows client. It basically all works exactly the same, with one exception I'll talk about in a moment. Now, when we're in here, really, there's a whole bunch of stuff available in Dynamics Ship. You can see a whole bunch of different options here. But really, where people are going to live, where the shipper is going to live, is in this package worksheet for the most part. Order packaging is another one where if you want to, if you don't have a paper-based system, you want to do it all electronically, you might do it there. But really what we're focusing on is the package worksheet. This is where the shippers are going to spend their day. So the way it works is where you currently maybe have a World Ship station or FedEx, or you have a terminal by the packaging station where they're using the carrier specific software, that all goes away, and this is the screen that runs on that terminal, and that's it. Now it can run on a tablet or whatever else if you like, but really what happens is we're going to have a terminal at the packing station. This screen is going to run there, and this is what they're going to use to do their packaging. Now, there's a whole bunch of different ways we can do this. Packaging, you could have certain people packaging and somebody else actually generate the labels and ship and those sorts of things. We support a whole bunch of those different workflows and use cases. But the scenario I'm going to use today is one where somebody's picked the product and dropped it off at the packaging station, and now it's my responsibility to package this product up and get it out the door. Now, maybe it was me picking it, or maybe it was somebody else. But the bottom line is I've now got a bunch of stuff sitting on my counter. I have a sales order or a pick ticket sitting there with a barcode on it. And now I need to package this product up and get it out the door. So what I'm going to do is up here, I've got a little USB scanner attached to my PC, and I'm going to be using that to scan barcodes. So the same USB scanner you'd see at CVS or whatever, where you're scanning barcodes at point of sale, same idea. And the barcodes I'm going to scan, it tells me up here, scan in order to begin. Well, there's a few different types of barcodes I can scan. I can scan the order. In other words, that could be the pick ticket, the warehouse shipment, the sales order, the transfer order, whatever document that I'm actually about to package up, I can scan that here. I can also scan item numbers there. And once I've brought up the document, I can start scanning item numbers to package. You don't have to scan your items, but that's really the ideal situation. And the reason is now we can explicitly verify that I'm actually packaging the right items, like those 10 things that somebody dropped off at my counter. If I scan something and it's not on the order that I'm working on, it'll yell at me, and I can't actually ship the wrong product. So being able to scan those barcodes is a huge advantage. I mean, that's going to help you pay for the system almost instantly. If you're shipping 1 or 2 wrong products a week, you're paying for the system right on that. If you don't have barcodes on your items, you could use that barcode generator to print labels and do it if you like, but you don't have to. You can actually just manually edit the quantities instead of scanning the barcodes. So you don't need barcodes on the items, but that is the ideal situation. And then the last thing I can scan is commands. So again, I can scan the documents, the order number that I'm packaging, I can scan item numbers, and then I can also scan commands. And what I mean by that is if I look in here, I've got a whole bunch of different menu options here to do all of these different things, printing labels and commercial invoices and everything else. So all of these different, commands that you see on the menus here, I can use the mouse and the keyboard to get to them. But another option is I just have a list of commands that are listed as barcodes, and I just scan a barcode to execute a function instead of going and hunting through the menus to find it. Okay, so those are the 3 things I can scan. I can scan documents, I can scan items, and I can scan commands. So in this case, the system is saying, hey, scan in order to begin. So again, I've got a bunch of stuff sitting on my counter. I'm going to scan the order that I want to work on. Oops, and there I scan one that doesn't exist. So they haven't released that order yet, so it yells at me. So I'm going to scan the proper order. And when I scan that order, it brings up that sales order for me. And again, it could be a sales order, transfer order, warehouse shipment, whatever you like. And I come in here and it lists all the items that I actually need to ship on this particular order. So they're, red highlighted, red italics to show they haven't been packaged. When I scan that order, if I scroll down on the side here, it tells me a few things about that order. Number 1, it tells me how I'm supposed to ship this. You'll notice this is blank. I do not have a shipping agent or a carrier specified for this particular order. Now that's probably a little bit unusual, right? Especially if you're doing small parcel stuff. Chances are you've chosen FedEx or UPS or DHL or whatever ahead of time at the sales order entry or from e-commerce or whatever, and that will be specified here so that the warehouse people don't have to do anything. In my case, I've left that blank to show you what we can do if we don't know which carrier we want to use. And then down, if we scroll below, we see the address we're supposed to ship to and a whole bunch of other stuff there. Okay, now what I'm going to do at this point is it says, hey, scan a package to pack. Well, I don't have any packages yet, so I'm going to start a new one. Now, I am actually going to do this the hardest way possible. I'm going to very explicitly tell the system how many boxes I'm using, and I'm going to explicitly identify which items are going into which box. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can set it up so that I can scan one command here and it just spits out, a carrier label for me, right? That could be, 2 labels, 3 labels, 1 label. There's a number of different things you can set up here to streamline how you do your packaging. But again, I'm going to do this about the most complicated way possible, where I tell the system exactly how many boxes I'm using and what's going into each individual box. So the first thing I do is, guess what? I scan a command that says, hey, create a new box for me because I don't have an existing box I want to pack. I want to start a brand new box. So I scan a command and it brings up this box number 149 for me. Now, we call it a package in here, but that can be a box, that could be a pallet, that could be an envelope, it could be whatever you like, anything that you're going to be packaging items into, right? So again, we can do LTL and you can have pallets or whatever you like. I'm going to call it box or package, but again, just keep in mind it could be a pallet as well. Now, when I scanned the command, what it did was based on the box size. I'm a shipper, I just grabbed a standard box size off the shelf and I scanned the command for that particular box size. So I might have 5 or 10 different standard box sizes or envelope sizes and things like that I use. So I'd have 5 or 10 barcodes sitting by the terminal and I just scan one of those and it will bring in the dimensions for me automatically. Now I can change these dimensions. I can scan a command up here to go and edit these dimensions, or I could manually come in here and edit. And I could change anything I like here, but it's brought in a box. It's a 2 by 1 by 1 box with a weight of 10 pounds, a default weight of 10 pounds. This weight, you can manually enter. Again, I can scan a command to get weight or to edit the package details and manually enter a weight that I read off the scale, or we can actually integrate with the scale as well. So in the on-premises version, if you're running in the Windows client, that's just native, it's built in, you plug the scale in, a USB scale it has to be, and it's pretty much immediate. If we're talking about Business Central Cloud, it's a little more effort. It takes a few additional hours when we do the deployment, but we can still read directly from a scale into the web browser as well. Okay, so we do have that scale integration. Or I can manually enter it, or you could have it set up so that we calculate the weight based on the items that you package. All right, enough talking about weight. Back to sort of the workflow here. I scanned the order that I'm going to work on. I said I want to start a new box, and now I'm going to tell the system what I'm actually putting into that box. So here I'm going to actually scan a barcode for the item. Again, as I said, I could come in here and I could just manually enter the quantity in this quantity to move here and move certain items into certain boxes and all those sorts of things. But because I have UPC codes, or it could be a custom vendor barcode or your own custom barcode on that item, I can scan it to bring it in. And the barcodes that we read off those items, by the way, we use the same processing logic as what we have in our Warehouse Insight product, the warehouse management system. So very capable, very robust barcode processing. So you can do things like put item number, lot number, expiration date, quantity, all of that kind of stuff in a single barcode. We can read it and we can execute that. So for example, if I was packing serialized items or lot tracked items, I could scan that one barcode and it brings in everything I need. Okay, but in my case, I'm just going to scan a UPC code. So I'm going to scan, we'll do that first line. Doesn't matter what order you scan it in. I just grabbed an item off the shelf or off my packaging station, scan the barcode on it. It verifies that that item actually exists on this order, doesn't yell at me. And then I either scan a barcode for the quantity I've packed or just manually enter how many I've packed. So what I did there was I entered 2. And what it does is it now shows me I've got 1 that's still unpacked, and I've got 2 packed into box 149. Okay, great. Let's say box 149 is now full. So I start my next box, and then I'm just going to cheat a little and pack all the items that are left over into this box 150. So now what you can see is in box 149, I've got these 2 items, and in box 150, I've got those 2 items. Pretty simple. So that was all of about 10 seconds of actual processing time within the system to do all my packaging. And now I'm done. I need to get my labels, get my shipping labels. So I need 2 box labels from the carrier. So what do? I say, hey, print my labels for me. The problem is, as I showed you earlier, we don't know how we're supposed to ship this yet. Nobody told us to ship this UPS or FedEx. So when I say get label, it says Well, sure, but you tell me which carrier you want to use. And what it does is, based on the address, it brings up all the carriers I have access to for this particular shipment. Now, this is a Canadian shipment, so it brings up Canada Post, but that would be USPS or whatever carrier you have set up that can handle this particular shipment. And I've got, FedEx, and I've got UPS in here. So this is bringing up all the services that I have defined within Business Central and all the carriers. And it's going out and it's getting those rates in real time. So it's coming back and saying FedEx is going to charge me $213. The published price or the list price of that might be a lot higher, but that's my rate for this particular shipment and when it's going to be delivered and everything else. So it comes in, brings all that stuff in, and I can now choose which carrier I want to use. You can get this exact same screen. Well, I lie. You can almost get this exact same screen from the sales order or sales quote level. The difference is at the sales order level and the sales quote level, we actually show you what the customer is going to pay you as well as what you're going to pay the carrier. Right now, this is only showing us the carrier rate, our cost. It's not showing what we're actually going to charge the customer for this freight. But again, you can get this same screen, this rate shopping screen at the sales order at sales quote level. So if you do want to do a comparison shop, a rate shop at or time of order entry, you can. At the warehouse, and then at the warehouse side, you wouldn't see this screen at all. The other thing you can do is if we haven't specified a carrier, we could set it up so that it just chooses the cheapest rate for this particular shipment. So the shipper wouldn't see the screen as well. It would just automatically choose the cheapest shipment carrier, the cheapest service and cheapest carrier for that particular shipment. Now, in my case, I am going to choose this FedEx 2-day here for fun for $213. And when I do that, what will happen is it'll print out the carrier labels on the printer that's attached to this machine. Now, in Business Central Cloud, the cloud version, it works a little differently than if you're on premises. What it will do is you have to start your browser in a certain mode in order for it to automatically print that label without seeing a print brief preview of that label, okay? And if you want to be able to print a packing slip on one printer and a label on another printer and a bunch of other stuff, that takes a little bit more time to implement when we do the implementation, because Business Central by default does not support that. So we have to add some additional capabilities to allow that. But the bottom line is, if I'm just printing my carrier labels at this point in time, whether it's Business Central Cloud or on-prem, I can have my labels just sitting on the printer beside my desk. Okay, so I hit Get Label, and my labels print out. I've got it set up so that I do a print preview here so we can actually see what the labels look like. And hopefully it won't be that surprising for you. It's just a FedEx label, box 1 of 2, there's my tracking number, and box 2 of 2 with the sub-tracking number for that box. And all of this information up at the top here, reference number, all that kind of stuff, you can set as well from within Dynamics Ship. But there's my FedEx label, prints out, and we're done. Simple as that. So again, 10 or so seconds of interaction with Dynamics Ship, and I've got everything I need to ship this product out the door. But we did a little bit more than that as well. So when I processed this order, we also went out and we sent the customer an email that says, hey, your package is on the way. So here's that email that I just got as we packaged this order. And so I logged into Gmail as if I was the customer, by the way. So here's the customer logging into their Gmail, and they say, oh, I got an email from that company and they're telling me my order's on the way, blah, blah, blah. All of this information here in the email, you have full control over. You set that up in Business Central. You can have different email templates for different customers. You can insert carrier names and all sorts of goodies in the email if you like, but you have complete control over that, different languages, whatever you want to do. However, the important thing on this email is that we sent them a link. And when they click on that link, what they do is they come to a page that has your logo on it. So this wouldn't say InsightWorks, this would have your actual logo on it, your advertising down here, your links, all of that kind of stuff. And I always joke, that's how you get your marketing people to pay for the shipping software, because they love this stuff. That's actually a bit of a joke, but it's actually true. If you ask them how much it costs them to get one of your existing customers to come to the website to look at specials, they're going to tell you it's a few dollars a person probably to get them to do that. Well, this is free. Right? They're already coming in to check on the status of their shipment. Now you get to upsell them and market yourself. Anyway, enough of that stuff. Back to the important shipping aspects of this. What it does, it gives us a nice little progress bar to tell us where that shipment is. it gives us the carrier information, everything else. So this is the only thing that changes on this page. This will show UPS or FedEx or whatever, depending on the carrier that we chose and the tracking number. We get all the same level of detail as if we went to the FedEx site, right? All the details here, but it's in a nice, pretty page that you control, that you have, the ability to put your own branding on. Okay, so that's the other thing we did. So we generated the labels. We sent the customer an email telling them their package is on the way. They've got a nice, pretty tracking page. And then we did a couple other things as well. If we actually look at that sales order we just processed, I'll bring it up here in Business Central. All right, so a couple of things here. I'm going to scroll down to the shipping area. And what we see is we've now specified on the sales order that we've shipped at FedEx today. Here is the tracking number for that particular order on that sales order, so we can go back and look at what's happening. And we can actually take that one step further. Let's say the customer phones up and says, hey, I'm missing some red chairs or something like that. Well, what I can do is I can go in and I can look at all the packages that we shipped on this particular order. So here's all the package details for that order. And if I open one of these guys up, the first package, 149 here, we'll see, okay, there's those 2 yellow chairs I shipped. And if I hit next, well, here's the other chairs. Here's those red chairs that they said they were missing. So now I know which package went missing. I know the entire contents of that package. And just as importantly, if I scroll down here, I can see the specific tracking number for that package. So that's the tracking number for this package. If I hit previous, here's the tracking number for this first package. So now when I start chasing FedEx or UPS or whoever on this package, I know the specific tracking number for that box, and I know the contents and the value and everything of that package. Okay, so if you ever need it, we have that tracking or that package level tracking information. The last thing we did on the sales order, if I scroll back up, you'll notice we added this delivery cost to that actual sales order. And these numbers here, the last few digits of the tracking numbers. And so we added this freight cost to that customer on there automatically. And if we go over here, we can see what we're actually charging this customer for freight. So that's $234. FedEx was charging us $213. We marked this up by 10%. So based on the customer ship to address, the carrier service, the freight value, and the order value, so all of that criteria you can configure, you can set up different markups, different discounts, flat rates, all that kind of stuff. So it makes it very easy to configure pricing rules of how you want to charge your customer for freight. Okay, and in this case, this is a good example where I marked it up by 10%, but if I scroll over, I also gave them a 100% discount on this freight because their order value was greater than $1,000. So you can set up all those rules very simply. And this is also a place where we often see people using a plugin, because there's about 1 million different ways people like to charge people for freight. For example, hey, if they've bought more than $1,000 in the last 12 months, I'm going to start charging them $9.99 for freight instead. So if you have that custom business logic to figure out what you should be charging a customer for freight, you just plug that in to the system and we say, hey, how much do we charge this guy for freight? You say $10 and we say, great, and we drop it in there automatically. Okay, so that's an example of where you can extend the system, and it's very easy to do it. But all those basic rules by, all those criteria I mentioned, that's just configuration. You can go and you can set all of that up without any coding or any plugins or anything like that at all. All right, so just to reiterate for the third time, if I hadn't been talking so much, the whole process of what I just did is maybe 10 or 15 seconds, other than the actual physical packaging of the items. And with that, I was able to specify which items are in which box. I was able to get my carrier labels and figure out which carrier to use based on the rate shopping. I was able to send my customer an email with a nice tracking link. I updated the sales order with the tracking information and charged the customer for that freight. So 15 seconds, a few beeps on the barcode scanner, and I'm done. Okay. So very powerful, very quick and easy to use. No world chip to go into, no data entry anywhere. It's just all magic. Now that's not all. There's a lot more that this thing can do. So for example, we often get the question, well, our customer wants me to bill their account number. Great, no problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to scan a command. Again, I could actually go in here and and use the barcodes, but I'm going to come in here and just scan a command instead to bring up some options. These options can be set at the customer level or at the shipment level. So what that means is I can have, a customer says, I always want you to bill my UPS account number. I can go set that up at the customer level, or I could potentially override it just for this specific order. And so that, by the way, is this section here where I can specify receiver account number or third-party billing account. Again, you can set that up, their UPS number, or whatever you need to do here. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff you can do. Like as an example, maybe a customer phones up. They're normally on account, but they're over their credit limit, but they need this stuff, so I'm going to ship it COD instead this time, right? Instead of putting it on account. So we can do all of that at the shipment level or at the customer level. So a whole bunch of different things you can specify here, delivery confirmations. This is where you can set up maybe printing the customer's PO number on the carrier label, those sorts of things. You can set up defaults that always pop up in that label. So a whole bunch of different things you can do here. All right, we can also print return labels. So if you're in a situation where you always send a return label along with the shipment because they're doing a core return or whatever, we can do that on the fly. You can also generate return labels a month later. Customer phones up, needs to ship something back. You can generate a return label for that shipment, email it to them as a PDF, and they can ship the product back. And we don't have to use the same carrier as what we used to actually ship the original product. So you may ship UPS out to, someplace in Europe, but on the return, you're going to ship it via DHL or something like that because they have a better rate. Anyway, all of those things are possible. The last thing I'll mention here real briefly is the ability to manage customs from the system as well. So if you do any international shipments, we'll generate the commercial invoice based on all the data within Business Central. So it's no retyping of HS codes, no separate database to manage, anything like that. All that information comes directly from Business Central. And what I'll do is I'll just bring up an international order here, I think. So this order here is an international order. And so I can actually bring up the customs thing. So if I scan the command or go to the menu, it'll bring up all the customs details for this particular order. Now, the only thing the shipper has to do with customs is they have to come in here and specify the content type and the content explanation. But we can even automate that as well if you like. You can have your custom rules that say, hey, if it's this type of product, I want to force this information in here, and then the shipper doesn't have to do anything. And the reason they don't have to do anything is if I scroll down, we can see all the line items that we're shipping on this particular order. I've only got one item on there, I'm shipping a bike. But what we get from this, the value, all of this information in here comes directly from the item master. So we know what that thing is worth. We can override it if we want, right? So we can override any of these things if we want. But it's bringing all this information in from the item master, including the HS code, the country of origin, all that kind of stuff. So there's no data entry. There's nothing I need to do. All I have to do, again, as a shipper, is come in and say what type of content it is, and then I hit certify. And certify is like electronically signing it. And what that allows the carrier to do is it allows them to use this information to actually clear customs electronically. So that they don't have to wait to get a paper copy of the commercial invoice to actually clear customs. We still print that paper copy of the commercial invoice because you want to put it on the boxes and stuff, but it's not actually required by the carriers. Okay, so that's the customs handling. Again, it's great if you don't do many international shipments because everybody always forgets how to do them from one month to the next. Well, this is all automated. There's nothing that they really have to remember to be able to do that international shipment. And it's also great if you do a lot of international shipments because it's all automated and there's nothing people have to do, right? It's all of about 5 seconds to come in and process that additional task for international shipments. Okay, that is really all. I lied. It's not all I wanted to cover. Let's briefly talk about LTL. So if you are packaging pallets and LTL shipments and things like that, there's a few things you can do. I did mention earlier on that we're going to have a number of LTL carriers available to do rate shopping with. So you can go out and you can do rate shopping, and it'll actually generate a bill of lading from that carrier directly. So that we will have an online ability to work with a couple hundred actually LTL carriers. If your carrier isn't one of those that's available online, that's fine. You can build up all your pallets or your packages, and then when you ship it, we'll ask you what the tracking number is, what the cost is, all of that. And we'll still send the tracking email. We'll still add the freight cost to the order if you want, all of those sorts of things. You're just manually entering the rate yourself, okay? And we can, of course, print a bill of lading from here or from the handheld scanner if you're using the warehouse inset. So we do have that LTL carrier support as well. Okay, that now for sure, I think that's all I was going to cover on the package worksheet. Very easy to use. It's really the only screen your shippers may ever see all day, every day. This is where they'll work. However, we have a couple of different options as well. So one of the other things we can do is create manifests. You don't need to. Manifests are completely optional, but you can actually go in there, generate a manifest for a day or a week or whatever. This is more useful for LTL, but I can come in, I can choose any carrier that I have defined in the system, go out and get the shipment documents, and it'll come in and it'll bring out all the different shipments I've done with that carrier over that time frame, including the cost, the tracking numbers, all of those sorts of things. So this is handy if you just want to then print it out and have a document that you can check against the driver when he comes to pick everything up. Or it can also be useful just electronically if you have your accounting people reconciling your outbound freight costs, right? Because then they can see the tracking numbers and the costs and make sure that the carriers aren't ripping them off or whatever. Anyway, you can generate manifests, print them out, do whatever you want with them. It's available if you need it. They're not required ever. They're not mandatory for the system to work. There may be a carrier that wants that manifesto. The other thing that we have available is something called miscellaneous shipments. And what miscellaneous shipments allows you to do is if you don't have a sales order or if you don't have inventory, but you still want to generate a shipping label, you can use a miscellaneous shipment. So as an example, this first one here, I'm just shipping a bunch of brochures to a contact in the system. And what this allows you to do is you create a new miscellaneous shipment, you just enter a description, you choose the address you want to ship to, either an existing entry within the system, or I can choose manual entry and just type in an address. And then I go down and I just specify how many packages I'm shipping. So I might have 10 different boxes or pallets or whatever, like I'm shipping a booth to a trade show or something like that. I can list all of that. And then I can go up and exactly like what I did before, I can do all my rate shopping, I can generate my labels, everything else, get the tracking number, get the cost, and away I go. So again, this is useful if you don't have inventory or a sales order or transfer order, but you need to ship something. So we see this used by, administration people, right? I'm in accounting and I need to ship a stack of documents to the auditors, or, I'm in marketing and I need to ship brochures or a trade show booth or whatever. I can just do that directly from here. Okay. Now, that is maybe for sure all I wanted to cover. Again, there's a ton more stuff we could get into, like the pricing rules and all those sorts of things. But, I'm going to leave it at that because we're at about the 40-minute mark. So if there's any questions, feel free to enter them now. If you're too shy or too slow to type, feel free to contact us afterward. Or again, contact your partner if you need a quote or anything on this. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions right now. So with that, would like to thank everybody for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of the week, and hopefully we will be talking again real soon. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.